And welcome everybody to the Daily Space Weather. Lots of stuff going on today. Everything from solar energetic particle events to polar radio blackouts to large earthquakes. So we're jumping right into the SDO intensity gram here from yesterday plus today. We do have one new sunspot group. It's quite large actually here. Maybe even considered two sunspot groups up here in the northwestern limb. That is the SDO intensity gram from yesterday plus today. Here's the SDO magnetogram for yesterday plus today as well. Today we won't have any custom HelioViewer movies because of some issues with websites and security certificates and so forth. So again, at least one new significant sunspot group. It might be considered two sunspot groups. I suspect it's actually probably two. And let's blast through some more information here. Pardon the lateness of today's video. And a quick reminder about the 20% off sale of the Redbubble shop. Yeah, the merch shop. You can find the links on our homepage at smashomash.com, as well as underneath this video. Save 20% site-wide. We just dropped those two new designs in the upper left. May that solar wind be at your back, and we'll keep an eye on it. Today's featured product is Pick 2. It's not going to be cheap, fast, and good. Again, save 20% site-wide on the Redbubble products. This is one of our newer designs as well. Project management facts. Yeah, facts. Because the project isn't going to be fast, cheap, and good, so pick two. That area in the middle is a non-existent area. If your project manager expects it to be cheap, fast, and good, it's probably just going to be bad. Because your project manager can probably figure out a way to make it cheap and fast, but guess what? It's not going to be good. So, I mean, these videos are in the upper left, which would be fast and good, but not cheap. So help support the channel with some merch, perhaps. Thanks to everybody who's picked up merch. Thanks to our latest annual paid-up subscriber at smashomash.com/smashteam. For all the rest of you, support the channel via links below this video and save 20% site-wide on all of the Redbubble products. Moving right along, let's talk about volcanoes. This Litli Hurter Nordur volcano is still erupting, and there is some footage of that. It's a live webcam, and yeah, a new cinder cone showing up there. New real estate being built on the Icelandic peninsula, the Reykjanes Peninsula. Also, Etna is still at it. And here's the rest of your volcano rundown from the Smash News Network. Least busted name in news. This is volcanodiscovery.com, by the way. So Etna is now exploding and producing some Strombolian-type activity. Sakurajima producing a 7,000-foot volcanic ash plume over the Isle of Kyushu, Japan. Mayan, no significant change in activity. Still producing like about a 14,000-foot plume of volcanic ash there over Luzon Island, Philippines. Bagana also continues to erupt. 10,000-foot ash plume. It's a flight level 100. Flight level 140 over Semeru. Not sure about Shishalin. No information provided. Popocatépetl exploding to the tune of 21,000-foot ash plume there over central Mexico. Flight level 210. Flight level 200 over Ecuador from Sangay. It's a 20,000-foot ash plume. And not sure about Sabancaya. Please don't pole vault the caldera. Now check it out. We said yesterday that, hey, there's been a bit of an earthquake drought, right? Well, indeed. That drought has ended with a 7.2 magnitude earthquake on the Alaskan Peninsula. So here's the location of that quake. It was originally listed as a 7.4, downgraded to a 7.2, way out there in sort of in no man's land. And you might be wondering if a tsunami was generated, and the answer is yes. So it was a small tsunami. So checking out the tsunami.gov site, there were 2 half-foot tsunamis detected. Now keep in mind, a small tsunami can be associated with really strong currents also, especially in places like inlets, bays, etc. So some small tsunamis there generated. We sent out email alerts about it, as we are known to do, to the Smash team. So the Smash team, those who were signed up for email alerts, even the bronze level members, would have gotten several alerts about space weather, that is solar energetic particle events and so forth. Here come the breakdown of the earthquakes over the past. Oh, another large one coming in here as we make the video. So major earthquake uptick here around especially the eastern Pacific. Here's the list of the past 24 hours quakes of a 5 magnitude or higher. Kuriel Islands had a 5.1 at 15:21 Universal Time. Continuing on, another quake coming in there. Looks like an aftershock of that 7 on the Alaskan Peninsula. So here's a lull in 7+ magnitude quakes, and then all of a sudden, there you go. Kablooey, a 7.2 south of Sandpoint, Alaska. That was at 6:48 Universal Time this morning. Again, we did send out email alerts about that. So if you want email alerts, smashomash.com/smashteam. And then, of course, many aftershocks on Sandpoint, Alaska. We won't cite all of those. What we will cite is this 5.1 in southern Mexico. So that's the last quake of a 5+ magnitude. And let's get back to space. There's plenty going on for space weather. For example, that sunspot growth we talked about in the northwestern hemisphere. And there have been some CMEs, some major CMEs. The problem is some data lacking. So that's yesterday plus today in 171 angstroms from SDO. And let's take a look at ionized helium as well. That's ionized iron, showing the lower chromosphere, the lower corona rather. Here's ionized helium. And lots of activity from the southwestern limb down there. That massive sunspot, as it sets, becomes more and more likely to produce an X-class solar flare. So there is a solar flare warning, to say the least, going on at the moment. It's beyond a solar flare watch. There is a nearly 100% chance of a major solar flare happening. So we'll be keeping you posted on that, as we're known to do here at the Smash News Network. Least busted name in news. The 10.7 centimeter radio flux now at only 179 solar flux units. And there is the 1-year graph of the radio flux. It's depicted by that black line there. That's from Solon.info. The black line is the radio flux. The red line is the sunspot number. Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard, pretty much on the same page with us here. NOAA forecasting another CME impact late in the day tomorrow on July 16th into early in the day on July 18th. So that is CME number 5 of 5 so far. That's earthly directed. There might be even more. We haven't even been able to analyze it yet, but we'll see what we can do during this video, so stay tuned for that. Next, looking at Earth's magnetosphere, here are the past 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from space, and it's very geomagnetically calm here at the moment. So when we do see the next CME impact, it will indeed create quite a signal. So a very uneventful past 4 hours. Don't expect that to continue. We're expecting by sometime early in the day on Tuesday, the 18th. So, yeah, here is our ground magnetic perturbations map. That's 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. Again, very calm conditions here at the moment in terms of space weather arriving at Earth. In terms of what's going on in the sun, a flurry of activity. So a huge disparity between the Earth space weather environment and the sun space weather environment. KP index is currently only at 1. It is a geomagnetically calm condition. Following just some geomagnetic unrest there. This actually encompassed 4 CME impacts. So it's been interesting. They just haven't had strong magnetic fields. So here's our real-time solar wind data. We've got a very, very diffuse solar wind density showing up there. Barely 0.17 protons per cubic centimeter there. That's an incredibly low solar wind density, a very, very diffuse solar wind. Solar wind speed here also kind of low, so it's slow and very diffuse there. 362 kilometers per second is the latest data there from the ACE spacecraft. GOES magnetometers here flatlined for the past 24 hours. Very low highs and kind of high lows, actually. It's just a tight range there, so we didn't see a real low spike. We didn't see a real low trough, just very low highs and kind of high lows, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. Next, we'll take a look at the top view ecliptic plane field plot, because this will provide us some predictive value. And what do we have going on here? Earth remains in a south pole current sheet for the foreseeable future. You can see that south pole current sheet depicted there in red, and let's take a look at the last image. So sector boundary crossing coming here. It's going to be a few days before a north pole current sheet unites with Earth. Here's our line of sight field plot depicting the solar magnetogram here, the gong magnetogram in grayscale. Solar polar fields in green for north, red for south, and the B field depicted in blue. That's the toroidal field that people are always talking about, the blue B field. It is essentially the net result of the overlap of the polar fields. Our line of sight field plot, and let's talk coronal holes. So here's our coronal hole line of sight plot. And we do have a North Pole coronal hole there. So a little bit of magnetic indecision happening right up here. There's a North Pole oriented coronal hole. The rest of these are south, except for down here in the southeast. So that's interesting, right? And let's take a look at coronal holes in 211 angstroms. So interestingly enough, we do have this North Pole coronal hole up here. The rest of these are south, except for down here there's one that's not really in view yet because there's a bunch of plasma in the way of it. That's the coronal hole situation, which brings us to sunspots. So here's a sunspot situation according to the Integrated Space Weather Analysis Center. You can see that up here in the upper right, that's the northwestern quadrant. We have 2 new sunspots that'll get names today. Those are separate sunspots. Not sure the complexity. We will show you high-res imagery of those before we go to our meteorology segment. So that's the current situation. Most of these sunspots are stable in terms of their growth and so on. There is a very high likelihood of a large solar flare, especially from this group down here. That group is extremely unstable, and we'll show you some more imagery of that here in just a moment. These groups up here also capable of large flares, and also this group here. So multiple locations likely to produce a large flare, especially this area down here. This area is more likely than not. It's an over 50% likelihood that will produce an X flare. It is extremely unstable and extremely exciting to report on this instability. Let's move on to energetic particles, which there's news about that too. So, solar energetic particle event rolled in early this morning. Actually, late last night is when it really started, but it didn't get into warning levels until quite a bit later than that. So, there's the ghost proton flux over the past 3 days. Again, that was a significant event there. It did get into the warning threshold, and it did indeed create some radio blackouts. So here is our deabsorption region predictions data. You can see at both poles there. And what happens is there, folks, is that those solar energetic particles, they get trapped in Earth's magnetic field lines, which come in from the poles. And as those protons circle those magnetic field lines, they emit radiation. And that causes the D portion of the ionosphere to be attenuated by that radiation, causing signals to, instead of getting refracted back down toward the ground, they get sent out into space. So that's, in a nutshell, what happens there. This solar energetic particle event has subsided since it occurred. Those polar radio blackouts have ended. However, expect major equatorial radio blackouts to continue here because, again, we just cited the fact that there is a very high likelihood of X-class solar flare. So there will be some radio brownouts just all the time because of the high background level of solar X-ray flux, which is depicted here for the past 3 days. And you can see the background level is somewhere around 1.3 is my best guess. But there is a lot of instability in that southwestern limb. So let's take a look at that in our fantastic SDO wavelengths. Money shots are coming. Here you go. There's yesterday plus today in SDO 94 angstroms. Again, significant flaring happening. Also CMEs coming out of that area in the southwestern limb. It's a huge sunspot. It's quite unstable, and it's getting closer and closer to the limb, which raises its likelihood a bit, statistically speaking, of producing an X-class solar flare. Here's another great wavelength through which to view solar flares. The 131 angstroms wavelength, like 94 angstroms, takes 10 images per minute instead of only 2, so it's a 5 times higher temporal resolution there for the 131 angstroms wavelength. It's specifically formulated to view solar flares. And again, just to reiterate, a very high likelihood of an X-class solar flare, especially as that large sunspot sets. Continuing on to talk about what's going on overhead. So there's what's going on overhead at the moment. Over Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. We set this up for Allentown, zip code 18106. Put in your own zip code if you want to create your own star chart. And if you are looking at the clear sky after sunset, you might see Venus and Mars up there, the third and fourth brightest object, depending on whether Mars or Jupiter are brighter. Venus being the third brightest object, Mars being at the moment, I believe, a little brighter than Jupiter. So Mars, the fourth brightest object currently visible there in the early evening skies. Here's your solar system forecast. So there's where things are now. We'll advance this 1 week. Just a day or two from a new moon here. That's where things will be on the 23rd of July. We will have a crescent waxing. Next, looking at CMEs, and we've got some issues with the data feed here. However, we do have some data. So there are 63 frames from yesterday, and there may be yet another Earth-directed CME there. I suspect it is another Earth-directed CME. What's very unhelpful is the shortage of data here at the moment. So I suspect that has a major Earth-directed component there. Most of the CME there will miss Earth to the west. However, Earth is moving in that direction. So that's going to be a pretty significant hit. I expect to see a KP7 plus from that. And you can expect to see that arrive sometime on the 19th. So sometime like midday on the 19th, you can expect to see yet another CME impact. So 17th, 18th, and 19th, space weather will continue on. It's a great time to try to photograph the aurora from places like the mid-latitudes, like where we are in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. So here are an additional, what do we have here? Oh, that's today. Here's yesterday. So there's 156 frames from yesterday. Let's let that play through one time in its entirety here to get all of the data on the video. So there's one major CME from the southwest. That looks like it's not earthly directed. There's one out of the west. That looks like it's not earthly directed. That second one out of the west doesn't look like it's earthly directed. But this one here out of the west looks like it is earthly directed. So we're going to take another look at that here from a different perspective. And unfortunately, check it out. We've got 3-hour time increments here on the Soho Lasco C3. Look at this. 1200, 15, 18, 21. Not good. Not good. So early today, there was a CME out of the west. There was a halo-like eruption from that. So that one might be on the far side. It might be on the Earth side. Let's take a look at stereo A here as well. And feel free to pause the video on that frame if you're not familiar with the locations of stereo A and B, represented by the red and blue circles respectively. Earth is the green circle there. And so there's, all right, here we do indeed have some data. Okay, that looks like it is earthly directed. So you can see a halo happening there from stereo A's perspective, an indication that is likely headed toward Earth. So CMEs to continue through the 19th and maybe even into the 20th there, as it's a pretty significant event. It could last for quite a while, so that's exciting stuff to say the least. More space weather headed Earth's way. Definitely no shortage of space weather. All right, so we've got a bead on that CME from this morning, and guess what? It is earthly directed. It is completely from the Earth side of the sun. So if you look up here in the northwest, right there, that is where that CME came from. And now it is headed toward your doorstep. So that's the 193 angstroms from the Solar Dynamics Observatory. It's quite good at showing CME events. It shows good contrast. It does show the extended corona as well. Here's a great composite. This is 211, 304, and 171 angstroms. So 2 species of ionized iron and 304 angstroms, which is ionized helium there. So that's the location of that latest CME. That is a lot of Earth-directed CMEs in the past few days. So again, it's a banner moment for space weather. And of course, we leveraged ourselves here a long time ago. We've been doing it for like 6 years because, well, we realized the importance of space weather for things like human space travel, space tourism, people who think we're going to, colonize Mars and things like that. So let's talk filaments next because, hey, it's getting late and we got to get this video onto your screen. So there is the El Teide Spain ground-based solar observatory showing solar filaments. And there are still quite a few on the Earth-facing portion of the solar disk. Expect the likelihood of coronal mass ejections to be 100%. They will continue to go on here, especially with this sunspot setting down here. You can expect large flares, etc. Again, exciting times for space weather. And we're delighted to bring you this information here at the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. So let's look at the past couple of hours as this sunspot in the southwestern limb continues to be incredibly unstable. So there are the past couple of hours from the GOES 18 SUVI. And, I mean, you can see a CME happening here as we produce the video. So also expect one to happen up here as that fishbone-looking projection is it's way too large to be sustainable. That will likely eject as well. Probably not all of that will splash back down, although it is possible. And sometimes plasma filaments do just reorient themselves as well. So you never know. That is the breakdown of most of the space weather stats. And let's move into our bonus feature segment. And we'll talk about satellite charging hazards. So we ain't got none. There are no satellite charging hazards. It's smooth sailing for satellites here at the moment. The GOES electron flux here is cratered, probably an anomalous reading following repeated CME impacts, but that is what you would expect to see, especially if you follow the channel for a long time. So the GOES electron flux here at very low levels. There's the 1-year graph to put it in context, about as low as she gets. The relativistic electrons there, the greater than 2 mega electron volt electron fluence or flux. Here's the relativistic model, the forecast model for those relativistic electrons by NOAA. And I think that's going to show up a little bit lower than the forecast there. 10 to the 5th. Right at 10 to the 6th. So it looks like that forecast, well, it looks like it's going to be just below that green box there for the next update. We also like to show the F layer of the ionosphere because that is where the GOES 16 and the GOES 18 make their measurements. Feel free to pause the video in this frame if you're not familiar with electromagnetic radiation penetration into atmospheric layers, the distances to these items in kilometers, etc. There is the F layer of the ionosphere, and things are looking pretty normal up there as well. So pretty steady environment there. In the ionosphere, nothing major going on. We show the data daily on the channel regardless of that because you never know when archiving a data set will show you something after poring over it in the future. You never know when new science will erupt. Here's the anomalygram. And again, things are pretty normal there. No major swings. And of course, the biggest swings are happening in the most normal place for that, which would be over the South Atlantic anomaly, which is right about here. The weakest spot in Earth's magnetosphere. And here's the latest image. This is very late today because of all kinds of technical difficulties. There is 1415 universal time ionogram and 1415 universal time anomalygram. We also show the total electron content forecast. That's free electrons up to about 12,500 miles of altitude. Feel free to pause the video on this frame if you're not familiar with the distances to those things. And here's our total electron content forecast showing you the most likely places for GPS errors. And it looks like this is actually a little bit less anomalous than yesterday. See yesterday's daily space weather video for huge anomalies in the total electron content. Barely anybody saw the content yesterday because reasons. Because YouTube just selectively decides when to recommend the content because reasons. Anyway, total electron content here getting less anomalous. Here is the total electron content anomaly from 10-day average for North America. And did you know yesterday's daily space weather video included a possible earthquake forecast? Yeah, you'll have to watch yesterday's videos for that, as we cover a lot of info and we pack it into a fairly short video, considering the info that is included. So here's our El Teide, Spain ground-based solar observatory. And that's, you can see the formation of those new sunspots in the northwestern limb. Again, very high likelihood of major solar flares. And congratulations on realizing that the Smash News Network least busted name in news exists. Here comes some high-res images of the closest star. So we're going to close out our space weather section of the video with the latest intensitygram and the latest colorized magnetogram. So here is your latest intensitygram. We press refresh so you see it happen. And there is the latest magnetogram. Do we have a new sunspot rising over here? Nope, just an active region. I think this might be a new region, so that we may have as many as 3 new named sunspot groups today. Looks like some instability happening with this group. Again, a very, very high likelihood of major solar flares, as we have multiple magnetically complex sunspot groups. The most of which, I mean, the highest likelihood of a major solar flare is certainly from this group down here, in my opinion. Come on, Microsoft Edge. Oh, I hate when it does that. I don't know why it does that, but it does. Anyway, here's the full disk rock back. Oh, thank you, Microsoft Edge. That's always really helpful. We appreciate you just showing the bar there because reasons. Very helpful. It also repeatedly suggests new tab. Look in the upper right. Watch. New tab? New tab. Oh, thanks. Use Control-T for a new tab, folks, as if anybody didn't know that. Continuing right along to get to our meteorology segment. Yeah, our meteorology segment. It's exciting stuff. And, yeah, some flooding coming to the northeast. So let's get to that. But before we do that, a quick reminder to follow us on social media. So one of the best places to find us on social media is on our homepage. So we launched this back in 2019. In response to pathetic censorship on Facebook, we saw the writing on the wall in 2018. So we launched our own website. So hit us up on social media. That's one of the many ways you can support the channel, by pressing the share button, press the comment button, and take a moment to press like if you haven't. Tell your friends and foes about the channel. Maybe pick up some merch. Again, you can find the links there. Save 20% on all items from the Redbubble shop. You can also find paid affiliate links at the Amazon shop and at the Hemp Lucid shop. So thanks to everybody who supported the channel. You can also find a link to the Smash Team site there, right there on the home page, smashomash.com/SmashTeam. We're also on Instagram, so follow us over there. You'll see exclusive content, especially about fitness and diet. And before we get to meteorology, check it out.
Dudes.
Time for me to put on my headset.
Killing people here on the ground level, dudes. Turn off the geoengineering. Bros, check it out. We got HARP right here. HARP.
HARP clouds.
HARP and chemtrails side by side, bro.
Side by side,
You know
bro.
what I'm saying? It's absolutely berserk, bro. Chemtrails over here.
Chemtrails.
And HARP over here.
HARP clouds over
Turn
here.
off the geoengineering, dudes.
Turn off the HARP base,
You're
bro.
killing people here on the ground level, dudes. Turn off the geoengineering today, brah.
Dane Wigington called, bruh. Turn off the geoengineering, bruh. Pardon the sarcasm. That's an exclusive video for Twitter. So let's take a look here at, we're going to look at sea surface temperatures and ocean currents, because some people, I think they still think that the sun is shutting down and things, and that that it's very spooky out there in terms of space and earth weather. And there you can see the Gulf Stream making it all the way up to Ireland and Iceland, as it always does. Is the AMOC shutting down? Well, not apparently, as it's still flowing where it normally flows. So if you're looking for a year without a summer, you are way too late. If you're banking on a grand solar minimum, get a new bank. yours is about to be bankrupt. That is a terrible investment. Do not invest in... All right, I'm just kidding, folks. That's not investment advice, all right? But seriously, if you're invested in the Grand Solar Minimum, you are out of luck. That is a terrible investment, and it is completely, it's like beating a dead horse. I want to kick the Grand Solar Minimum when it's down because it is in the garbage where it belongs, in the dustbin of history. Anyway, so those are ocean currents and sea surface temperature anomaly. Let's just briefly show the sea surface temperature anomalies here. There is the largest surface heat sink on the planet, known as the Pacific Ocean. Here is the Southern Ocean. How about the Indian Ocean? Oh, we got that covered. There you go. And here is the Atlantic. Not the hack fraud publication, the Atlantic. I'm talking about the ocean, not the leftist publication. We're not talking communism. We're talking about an ocean, and there's the Arctic Ocean. All right, so let's get back to this. Once again, if you're visible under this map, please press the share button, as our saturation into the Asian market is almost nothing. We do have viewers from Oceania, though, so shout out to all of you. Let's switch to the regular everyday wind map. So there you go. There are the surface winds. It looks like China's got a tropical system showing up here. China. Some pretty significant winds there. Not that powerful, though. And here is the jet stream scenario for this side of the planet. Again, if you're located on this side of the planet, press the share button. Especially if you're in this area, which includes like 3 billion people. Yes. Yes, you can say it. Yes, it's spelled Y-A-S, although I prefer Y-A-Z. Here are the jet streams over the North American and South American continents, and the U.S. has a nice coherent jet stream here. It's fairly normal weather patterns there, returning to most of the U.S. Here's the surface wind scenario, as we've got predictable weather over North America, and let's take a look at surface winds for the central world. And here are your jet streams. And do you think Tadej Pogačar will steal the yellow jersey from Jonas Vingegaard today in the Tour de France? Let us know in the comments what you think. I suspect that Pogačar is going to win the race overall. I was very wrong yesterday. I predicted Pogačar winning the stage by over 3 minutes, and he won the stage by less than 4 seconds, getting the same time as Maja-Jean-wearing Danish rider Jonas Vingegaard. So here we're looking at some some drought maps. Yeah, some soil anomaly data, actually. So there's the soil moisture situation. It's a little bit moist in the northeastern part of the country, to say the least, and indeed anomalously moist. So there's the soil moisture anomaly, and there is the drought intensity map, just to let you know what's going on in terms of soil composition. That's the scenario. It's not too bad here. We had an extreme drought in Pennsylvania. It did end abruptly quite a while ago. So now we're looking at the sunrise. Yeah, it's the visible satellite over the Americas. We very rarely use the visible satellite, as it is usually too dark when we make the videos, but today we're coming so late that there is a great view. What you'd be seeing if you were riding on the satellite. That is the GOES Interactive Weather Satellite Suite. And let's blast through the rest of this video. Here's our weather.gov map, and we've got some flood watches and warnings there around the Northeast and some heat warnings. Here's the key. If your location is lit up there on the map, head to weather.gov and get your weather warnings. Weather.gov. We've got smoke issues also. So let's check out the Canadian smoke map here. It is I don't know what it's called. There we go. Firesmoke.ca. And apparently those air quality alerts are not from smoke, because the smoke is chill here. So, yeah, there you go. That's the situation. Looks like some fires here around in the U.S. like northern Iowa there, but Canadian smoke not really looking like it's an issue. I suspect it's just bad air quality from heat domes. So speaking of heat domes, here is our 72-hour temperature anomaly forecast in degrees Celsius. And we brought that up because there are so many excessive heat warnings. That is again, it's a GFS 72-hour temperature anomaly in degrees Celsius forecast. Going to be pretty average in the mid-Atlantic states. Here is your GFS 72-hour pressure and precipitation forecast. And while those rains are ending here in a couple hours in New England, there's a second wave coming through here. So not exactly welcome, as more rain will continue to fall, especially in places like Maine and looks like New Hampshire. 72-hour GFS pressure and precipitation forecast. Here is the 72-hour total accumulated precipitation forecast in inches. And again, we are expecting an additional 3 inches in parts of Maine, most of New Hampshire, parts of Vermont. Also, Missouri and Texas expecting some heavy rains in the coming days. That's your 72-hour GFS total accumulated precipitation in inches. Next, we've got your lightning mapper here, and we were actually awakened by lightning. It was a long night in Lehigh Valley, PA. That's the last 10 hours of lightning strikes. And here's a brief look at a real-time lightning map to see if we've got any active cells here. Do we have terrestrial strikes? Well, we certainly do in southern Oklahoma. There's quite a concentrated thunderstorm here east of Springer. Some significant thunder cells there. And highly recommend you check out lightningmaps.org next time you hear thunder. Convince your friends and foes that you're Thor or something, that you're a horror movie villain. Say something about their soul right as the thunder rolls in. It's always fun times. If you enjoy the content, press like and subscribe. Press the share button. We're surprised that you found the content, but congratulations on doing so. It's just the world's most comprehensive daily space weather and detailed solar imagery. Not only the world, it's the known universe's most comprehensive daily space weather and detailed solar imagery. Thanks to our new subscribers. Again, tell your friends and foes. If you want to support the channel via a subscription services, consider becoming a member of the Smash Team at smashomash.com/Smash Team. We launched our subscription services site back in October of 2021. It wasn't the optimal timing because of COVIDiocy. However, we are still here. We are still providing additional content, especially to our Gold and Silver Smash Team members. And again, we send out disaster alerts and space weather alerts and so forth to even the bronze level. So that'll cost you $0 a month. Silver is $2.99 a month. Gold is $9.99 a month. And there is a gold annual paid-up subscription as well. It's like getting 4 months for free due to the complimentary merch that is thrown in with your gold annual paid-up subscription. Thanks to our Smash Team members, these videos are brought to you in part by the contributions of them and also at massive personal risk and expense by Smash staff and I. The videos are good and fast, but not cheap. So here is our U.S. Doppler radar map. This is where we will close things out. So there is the full 50 states view. Here is the lower 48 view. Some heavy rains there going to continue to pummel Boston and also hit Providence. Kansas City's in the crosshairs. St. Louis and Nashville, there's stuff on the way. Here is clouds and fog for the lower 48. And here is the water vapor map. You can see the jet stream is still blowing backward over the Gulf of Mexico, blowing east to west. However, most of the U.S. weather is now being controlled by the jet stream, which blows west to east, usually on planet Earth. Here's a recap to close out today's video. U.S. Doppler radar. This shows vertical motion in the air column from ground-based Doppler radar systems. This is a space-based system that shows infrared radiation in 3.9 micrometers. It depicts clouds and fog, even when it's too dark for the visible satellite. And this is the water vapor map. It shows all the water vapor. And when your Doppler is unclear, try the water vapor map. That will put you here and give you a sense of what is going on, especially if you understand atmospheric physics. And of course, we empower our viewers to be able to forecast not just Earth weather, but also space weather. That's why we put them together. And thanks for tuning in. We'll stop doing it never. In the meantime, since there's so much space weather headed our way, it's time to get back to the bunker before, spooky space stuff kills me. Oh no, I'm spooked of space. Watch out, folks. There's stars and galaxies and planets out there. It's very spooky. The galaxy, no, it's so dangerous, and I've got to go back to the bunker. I'm going back to the bunker again. Whoa!